Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Julie Andrews, the mythical voice at the back of Mary Poppins, and the sound of tune is nearing 90. But her life nowadays is a ways from a fairy tale. From mesmerizing audiences with her golden voice to facing heartbreaking struggles, her journey has been one among triumph, loss, and resilience. What has ended up of the beloved Hollywood icon. Live tuned as we discover the bittersweet fact of her life. Nowadays, Julie Andrews is almost ideal in every manner. As Mary Poppins would say, however, her lifestyle story is anything but ordinary before she became the beloved famous person of The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins earlier than she enchanted audiences on Broadway, and lengthy before she won an Oscar. Julie Andrews turned into just a young woman with a huge voice and an even larger thriller in her life. This twist in her story is instantly out of a film. However, earlier than we get to that stunning revelation, let's rewind a bit. Born Julia Elizabeth Wells on October 1st, 1935, in Walton, on Teesside, England, Julie changed into destined for the level her mom turned into a pianist, and her stepfather, whose remaining name she took, become a singer, so naturally track ran in her veins. But there's something unexpected. She barely knew her actual father, and this is in which tale takes a flip, a 14 to 12 months old. Julie already are making a song. Prodigy walks into a get-together with her mother. She's watching for a regular evening perhaps, a little tune, a few polite communication. But then her mother pulls her aside and introduces her to a person she's never met before, and not simply any man. It changed into her actual father, Julie's mother, who had always let her accept as true, with that her stepfather became her actual dad. Have been retaining a huge secret. The person she became now, meeting for the first time, changed into certainly her biological father. That second become overwhelming for young Julie, puzzling, emotional, and probably a little awkward too. What do you even say in a state of affairs like that growing up? Julie's international became packed with danger, worry and trouble. Sure, her early life become anything, however, a fairy tale. Imagine being a toddler with dreams of making a song, but as opposed to a cozy home and loving own family, you are surrounded by the deafening sounds of air raid sirens, explosions, and the consistent fear of not making it today after today, because this is exactly what Julie Andrews confronted at some point of the tarrying period of the London Blitz. And if you watched, that was the worst of it. Just wait, because Julie wasn't just preventing to live on a battle. She turned into also combating battles in her very own domestic. But we're going to get to that stunning part in a moment. First, let's take a step, returned to apprehend what life become like for younger Juliet, some point of one of the darkest times in history, from September 1940 to May 1941. Nazi Germany launched relentless raids on the UK, targeting main cities, which includes London, the very place Julie referred to as domestic. This wasn't simply one-time assault. It was 8 months of terror at night, the sky lit up. Not with stars, however. With explosions, families huddled together in underground bomb shelters, clutching each different, because the ground shook the following morning. They would emerge hoping their homes had been still status. Many were not youngsters, have been dispatched away to the geographical region for protection. But no longer. All of them Julie, and became among those who stayed behind, witnessing the destruction firsthand. Are you able to consider trying to fall asleep as bombs drop out? Door your window looking to dream of a better future, when your present is full of worry, food turned into scarce rationing. Intended, you couldn't just devour what you wanted, sugar, a luxurious sparkling fruit, exact success, finding it, and but no matter all this, Julie nonetheless found a manner to sing inside the middle of all of the chaos. Her voice have become a supply of consolation, no longer just for herself, but for the ones round her. But here's the component that is even greater, heartbreaking. The war changed into terrifying, however, what Julie confronted in her personal home. That become a war no baby have to combat, while London became underneath attack. From the sky, Julie's home was a battlefield of its own. Her stepfather, Ted Andrews, changed into imagined to be a protector. Rather, he became a source of Chehi was reportedly merciless. Now, not just to Julie, however, to her mom as well. Domestic cave too were an area of safety, area to break out the horrors of war. However, for Julie, there was no escape. Imagine being an infant and feeling like there may be nowhere to run out of doors. There had been bombs, interior. There has been worry of a different type. Julie later discovered that she endured emotional or even physical hardships on the palms of her stepfather. It is a painful fact that adds even more depth to her story, and but one way or the other, she determined a way to rise above. It all clung to the one element that gave her desire tune, whilst different children played inside the streets or huddled in shelters. Julie changed into honing her talent. She had a voice that became not like whatever all people had ever heard. It changed into sturdy. It turned into clean, and it became effective enough to drown out even the darkest moments of her adolescence. Julie Andrews is the type of legend that does not just show up in a single day. Her adventure to stardom was one of skills, perseverance, and a royal node of approval. Sure, before Hollywood, earlier than Broadway, and before she become almost perfect in every way, she became only a young woman with a voice that could deliver a room to a standstill and wager what one of the first human beings to recognize. This is none apart from British royalty. As a teenager, Julie Andrews had the honor of performing for British royalty, the Queen Mother herself, and guess what? The Queen Mother praised her. She informed Julie she sang fantastically. Tonight, and much like that, a celebrity changed into born. By using the overdue 1940s, Julie became already creating a call for herself within the English theatre scene, but simply conquering the United Kingdom wasn't sufficient. This female had big dreams. So like many formidable stars before her, she set her attractions on America, and inside the mid-1950s. Broadway welcomed Julie Andrews with open fingers. Her first foremost break is The Boyfriend, a musical that added her tremendous expertise to American audiences. It was a hit, and unexpectedly, all and sundry become asking, who is this younger girl with the voice of an angel? Properly, Broadway failed to ought to wait. Lengthy to find out due to the fact, in 1956, Julie landed a role that would alternate the whole lot. Eliza Dittle in My Truthful Lady. Now, if you recognize anything about theatre, you already know this changed into a big deal. This wasn't simply any musical, it became the musical of the time. And Julie, she definitely stole the show. Her portrayal of the scrappy flower girl who transforms right into excessive society woman earned her a Tony Award nomination for Pleasant Actress in a musical no longer horrific for a person who just a few years in advance changed into singing for the Queen Mother. However, Julie Andrews wasn't done, but after her marvelous success in My Fair Lady, Julie took on any other legendary position. Guy and Camelot. This turned into 1960, and Broadway turned into. Its top audiences were passionate about the tale, the romance, the track, and a fruit. Julie Andrews, her chemistry with Richard Burton, who played King Arthur, become plain. The songs have been unforgettable, and Julie, she yet again located herself, nominated for a Tony Award. It is Tony nominations in just a few years. At this point, it became clear she wasn't only a gifted singer, she became Broadway royalty. But here's where the tale takes unexpected flip. It's 1964. Julie Andrews is already a huge deal on Broadway, but Hollywood, they weren't. Convinced, in fact, after they made the movie version of My Fair Lady, the very position Julie originated on stage, they did not forged her. They went with Audrey Hepburn as a substitute, but destiny had different plans. Walt Disney noticed Julie in a Broadway display and knew she became perfect for his new movie, Mary Poppins. And just like that, the International was delivered to the paranormal nanny who ought to fly, sing, and make event the grumpiest fathers dance on rooftops. Julie turned into so appropriate in Mary Poppins that she received the Academy Award for High Quality Actress. And here's the exceptional component. On the awards night when she widespread her trophy, she cheeky thanked Jack Warner, the manufacturer who had snubbed her for My Truthful Lady talk about stylish and savage. However, Julie wasn't executed, carried out, but simply 1 year later, Julie took on some other iconic position, Maria von Leur in The Sound of Music. This movie wasn't simply successful, it became a phenomenon. Humans still watch it these days, sing alongside to DOI and twirl round in open fields pretending they may be Maria Julie's. Overall performance becomes so liked that she earned every other Oscar nominati. Along Dudley Moore and Bo Derek, Julie and Blake got married, and he or she became stepmother to his youngsters, children Jennifer and Jeffrey. However, their love tale didn't prevent there in the 1970s. They decided to grow their circle of relatives even more with the aid of adopting 2 Vietnamese daughters. Amy, later known as Amelia Lee, and Joanna Lynn. Julie and Blake were collectively for 41 years in Hollywood, in which marriages every so often closing shorter than a film's runtime. This is exceptional. Unfortunately, Blake passed away in 2010 because of pneumonia, and Jai changed into By His Side. Till the very quit, it turned into a heartbreaking loss. But their love tale stays one of the maximum touching in Hollywood records. Julie Andrews has lived a life that most folks can handiest dream of. She's gained Oscars, starred in some of the most loved films of all time done for royalty, and found a love that lasted a lifetime. But wait, there is still extra to her story, because even as many humans recognize about her performing and singing, few know about the heartbreaking tragedy that almost ended her career. Julie was called Britain's youngest prima donna, and for exact motive, her voice was mild, bright and operatic. It had a warmth that would make even the coldest hearts soften, and the exceptional element it all appeared so effortless. She could belt out high notes like nobody's business, all even as looking as swish as a princess, which she actually played in The Princess Diaries decades later. But even the most perfect voices are not proof against time. As Julie were given older, her voice, clearly modified, her high notes have become trickier to hit, and her sound grew richer and deeper. Some singers conflict with this transition. But now, not Julie. In place of fighting it, she embraced it. Her voice advanced into something even more soulful, something that carried more emotion, extra intensity. But then got here the actual tragedy in 1997. Whilst appearing on Broadway in Victor Victoria, Julie observed something changed into wrong. Her voice wasn't as sturdy as it was once. She advanced hoarseness that simply would not depart. Docs told her she had nodules on her vocal cords, small growths, which can have an effect on the voice, so she did what any singer could do. She was given surgical treatment to put off them. However, something went terribly incorrect. Instead of solving the problem, the surgical treatment damaged her vocal cords, robbing her of the singing voice that had made her a legend. Can you consider one moment you're the lady who is Mary Poppins, and the subsequent you can barely hold a word? Julie later called it devastating, and genuinely, that is an understatement. This turned into the equal woman who once refused to sing sad songs because she feared losing her voice in emotion. Now she had misplaced it absolutely. But right, here's the kicker. Julie later discovered that she in no way, without a doubt, had nodules. That's right, she later explained that her hoarseness wasn't from growths at all, but from muscular striation. Essentially, a stress resulting from acting. Nighttime after nighttime, the surgical operation wasn't even essential, and it absolutely destroyed her singing voice. Losing her voice became devastating sufficient. However, Julie Andrews wasn't just going to take a seat, again, and take delivery of what took place. No, she fought back in 1999. She filed a malpractice lawsuit in opposition to the medical doctors at Mount Sinai Hospital, inclusive of Scott Kessler and Jeffrey Libon, the very surgeons who had operated on her throat in the beginning. These docs assured her that she could regain her voice within 6 weeks. That sounded hopeful, but 6 weeks exceeded then. 6 months. Then 2 complete years, and nevertheless, her making a song voice never back. Her stepdaughter Jennifer Edwards summed it up best in 1999. It has been 2 years, and it nevertheless hasn't lower back. It truly is. When Julie Andrews knew this wasn't just terrible good fortune, something had long gone terribly wrong, and she wasn't going to allow it. Julie's legal team went after the medical doctors for clinical malpractice, arguing that the surgical treatment had been botched and that she misled approximately. The risks the case dragged on for over 12 months. but in September 2000, an agreement was reached. The exact quantity is undisclosed. However, you could wager it wasn't pocket trade. However, no amount of cash may want to should convey back her voice. She had lost the very element that made her a legend. Now, the docs never admitted fault because of route they would not, but allows be real. If Julie Andrews issuing you for ruining her voice, you likely did something wrong for a lady whose voice once soared throughout 4 octaves. Julie Andrews' loss became no longer just a career setback. It became deeply private after the disastrous 1997 surgery. Her as soon as dazzling soprano changed into reduced to a fragile alto, always the master of wit. Andrews attempted to find humor in her tragedy, famously quipping, "I can sing the hell out of Old Man River." However, in the back of the humor turned into pain. She later admitted she'd by no means absolutely recovered from the botched manner. Inside the early 2000s, Andrews became to Stephen M. Zal, the director of the Massachusetts General Hospital Center for Lineal Surgical Operation and Voice Rehabilitation. He turned into a renowned expert in voice healing, and there was hope. Possibly her singing voice may be saved. Over the years, Zal accomplished 4 surgical procedures on Andrews. Those tactics had been not minor. They have been specific and groundbreaking. The result, her talking voice progressed, becoming more potent and clearer, but her singing voice, that magic changed into long gone all the time. How do you cope? While your identity modifications for Andrews, this became greater than just a loss of notes. It became the lack of a key part of who she was. She ought to have disappeared, long gone into hiding, let bitterness take over. But alternatively, she reinvented herself, real to her resilient nature. She did not wallow in despair. Rather, she tailored Julie Andrews, proved why she's not simply an icon, she's a fighter. She did not let this tragedy define her. She embraced voice performing, lent her voice to narration, and even took on iconic roles wherein her speak me voice turned into enough to captivate an audience. From narrating films to delighting audiences in interviews, Andrews proved that even as her singing voice is probably long gone, her charm and skills were eternal. However, permits not neglect, the surgeries had been not just about her career. Andrews once stated she wanted her grandchildren to listen her speak, surely even. In her struggles, she ideated approximately her family and how to stay linked with them in significant approaches.